He let a beautiful alien stay the night. Her charm was irresistible. The meteor shower painted the night sky in brilliant streaks of gold and silver, and Ethan Morrison stood on his cabin's weathered deck, coffee growing cold in his hands. This was exactly why he'd chosen this isolated stretch of Oregon coastline. No light pollution, no neighbors, just him and the cosmos he'd devoted his life to studying. Then he saw it, a falling star that didn't behave like the others. It curved unnaturally, slowing as it descended beyond the tree line with an impact that shook the ground beneath his feet. Ethan's scientific curiosity overrode common sense. Grabbing his flashlight and emergency kit, he crashed through the dark forest, following the scent of scorched earth and something metallic he couldn't identify. The crater glowed with a faint blue luminescence that made his breath catch. And there, collapsed at its center, was her. She was humanoid but utterly alien, her skin a deep, luminous blue that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, catching the light like mother of pearl. Her hair fell in waves of silver white around her shoulders, and even unconscious, she possessed an ethereal beauty that made Ethan's heart race. Strange geometric patterns, almost like delicate tattoos, traced along her exposed arms and collarbone, pulsing faintly with bioluminescence. She wore a form-fitting suit of material he'd never seen, damaged and torn in places, revealing more of that mesmerizing blue skin. A gash on her temple oozed something that wasn't quite blood, more like liquid starlight. "Jesus," Ethan whispered, kneeling beside her. Every scientific protocol screamed at him to call someone, the government, the university, anyone. But something in her face, so vulnerable and far from home, made him hesitate. Her eyes flickered open, large, expressive, and the color of amethyst. They locked onto his, filled with fear and confusion. She tried to speak, sounds melodic but incomprehensible flowing from her lips. "It's okay," Ethan said softly, raising his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I won't hurt you. Let me help." She searched his face for a long moment before her body relaxed slightly, though pain creased her features. When Ethan carefully slipped his arm behind her shoulders to help her stand, her skin was warm, almost feverish, and an electric tingle passed between them at the contact. Supporting her weight, feeling her trembling against him, Ethan made a decision that would change everything. He guided her toward his cabin, leaving the smoking crater and all rational thought behind in the darkness. Ethan settled her onto his worn leather couch, the cabin's warm light casting amber shadows across her blue skin. She winced as he examined the gash on her temple, her amethyst eyes tracking his every movement with cautious curiosity. "I'm Ethan," he said slowly, pointing to himself. "Ethan." She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Her lips parted, and she attempted the sounds. Tan. Her voice was melodic, like wind chimes in a breeze. He smiled, warmth flooding his chest. "Close enough." He pointed to her questioningly. She touched her own chest, her slender fingers spreading over her heart. "Lyri." "Lyri," he repeated, loving the way the name felt in his mouth. Beautiful and strange, just like her. As he cleaned her wound with gentle touches, their eyes met frequently. Each time, the air between them seemed to thicken. Her skin was impossibly soft, and those geometric patterns along her arms glowed brighter when he touched her, as if responding to his presence. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into his ministrations, her breathing deepening. When he brought her water, their fingers brushed around the glass. The electric sensation was stronger this time, making them both inhale sharply. Lyri's eyes widened with surprise, then something deeper, recognition, perhaps, of the connection sparking between them. Over the next hours, they communicated through gestures and expressions. Ethan showed her photos on his laptop, and she touched the screen with wonder, trying to understand his world. When she pointed to images of space, her whole face lit up, and she gestured upward with longing that needed no translation. Thunder rumbled outside, and Lyri startled, moving closer to him instinctively. The storm hit fast and hard, rain hammering against the windows. Ethan built a fire while she watched, fascinated by the dancing flames. Their eyes kept finding each other across the room, conversations happening in silence. "You must be exhausted," Ethan said, gesturing toward his bedroom. But Lyri shook her head, patting the space beside her on the couch. She didn't want to be alone. He sat, maintaining a respectful distance, but Lyrie shifted closer until their shoulders touched. The contact sent warmth radiating through his body. She pointed to the photos on the wall, his family, his work at the observatory. When she touched his hand, tracing the lines of his palm with curious fingers, Ethan's breath caught. Her touch was feather-light, exploratory. She compared their hands, so similar yet different, her blue skin against his tan. "We're not so different," he whispered. Lyrie met his gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. She leaned her head against his shoulder, exhaustion finally claiming her. Ethan sat frozen, afraid to move, feeling her breathing slow and synchronize with his own. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, two souls from different worlds found unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Morning light filtered through the curtains, and Ethan woke to find Lyrie still nestled against him, her silver hair spilled across his chest. The geometric patterns on her skin had dimmed to a soft glow. He didn't want to move, didn't want to break the spell. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she seemed disoriented. Then recognition sparked, and she smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that made his heart stumble. Over breakfast, they continued their wordless education. Lyrie tried coffee and made an adorable face of disgust that had Ethan laughing. She preferred the fresh strawberries, closing her eyes in bliss at each bite. He found himself watching her mouth, the elegant column of her throat as she swallowed, and forced himself to look away. After eating, Lyrie gestured urgently toward the forest, mimicking something technical. Her ship, he realized. She needed to find it, to signal for help. The thought of her leaving created an unexpected hollow feeling in his chest, but he nodded. "Town," he said, pointing down the road. "We need supplies. Equipment." She understood, standing with new determination. But when she tried to walk, her leg buckled, the injury worse than she'd admitted. Ethan caught her, his arms circling her waist, pulling her against him. For a moment, they stood frozen, her body pressed to his, faces inches apart. Lyrie's fingers curled into his shirt, her breath warm against his lips. The patterns on her skin flared brightly, responding to the proximity, to the desire clearly written in both their expressions. But she pulled back reluctantly, gesturing that she could manage. In town, Ethan bought electronics and tools, acutely aware of Lyrie hidden in his truck wearing his oversized hoodie, the hood drawn up to conceal her otherworldly features. He couldn't stop glancing at the vehicle, worried and eager to return to her. Back at the cabin, they worked together sorting through equipment. Lyrie's intelligence was obvious. She understood the technology instinctively, nodding or shaking her head at various components. Their hands kept touching, lingering longer each time. That evening, Ethan taught her to dance to old vinyl records. She was clumsy at first, stepping on his feet, laughing, a sound like crystal bells. But she learned quickly, and soon they were swaying together, her blue skin luminous in the dimming light. "Beautiful," Ethan murmured, unsure if he meant the moment or her. Lyrie looked up at him, her amethyst eyes searching his face. She reached up slowly, giving him time to pull away, and traced his jaw with her fingertips. Her touch left trails of warmth. "Ethan," she whispered, his name nearly perfect now on her lips. He covered her hand with his, turning his face to press a kiss to her palm. She inhaled sharply, her other hand finding his chest, feeling his racing heartbeat. The music played on as they stood suspended in the moment, the space between them charged with possibility and longing neither could deny much longer. The stars emerged like diamonds scattered across velvet, and Lyrie pressed her face against the window with such longing that Ethan's heart ached. He touched her shoulder gently. "Come with me," he said, taking her hand. He led her down the wooden steps to the beach, where waves whispered against the shore. The sand was still warm from the day's sun, and overhead, the cosmos stretched infinite and breathtaking. Lyrie gasped, her whole body seeming to relax as she gazed upward at the stars, her stars. She pointed to a constellation Ethan didn't recognize, speaking in her melodic language. Though he couldn't understand the words, he heard the emotion, homesickness, wonder, sadness. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "that you're so far from home." Lyrie turned to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. She touched his face, and this time he understood. She was grateful too. Grateful for him, for his kindness, for making her feel less alone. They sat together on the sand, and Lyri began teaching him words in her language. Selah, she said, pointing to the stars. Then to the ocean, Miraith. And finally, placing her hand over his heart, Kayla. What does that mean? Ethan asked, his voice rough. She struggled, searching for a way to communicate. Finally, she took both his hands and placed them over her own heart, which beat strong and rapid beneath his palms. Her skin was warm, almost electric. Kayla, she repeated, her eyes locked on his. Connection. Soul. Love. The realization hit him like a wave. In just 2 days, this impossible, beautiful being had reached into his lonely existence and awakened something he'd thought long dead. Tomorrow, Lyri said haltingly in English, her accent thick but understandable. Ship comes. I go. I know, Ethan whispered, though the words tasted like ash. She moved closer, eliminating the space between them. Her fingers threaded through his hair, and she spoke softly in her language, words he didn't need translated. Then she kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, exploratory. But when Ethan responded, pulling her closer, the kiss deepened with all the longing they'd been holding back. Her lips tasted like starlight and strawberries, and her body molded perfectly against his. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Stay with me tonight, Ethan said. Just tonight. Yes, Lyri breathed. Tonight. They returned to the cabin hand in hand, every step weighted with anticipation. Inside, Ethan lit candles while Lyri watched, the flickering light dancing across her luminous skin. When he came to her, she reached for him without hesitation. Their kisses grew more passionate, more desperate. Ethan traced the geometric patterns along her shoulders, her collarbone, discovering that they warmed beneath his touch, glowing brighter with her rising emotions. She gasped when he kissed her neck, her fingers clutching his shoulders. Beautiful, he murmured against her skin. So beautiful. Lyri pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, her own filled with desire and tenderness. She whispered something in her language, a question, seeking permission. Ethan answered by lifting her into his arms, carrying her to his bedroom. The night unfolded slowly, sweetly. Every touch was worship, every kiss a promise. They explored each other with wonder and reverence, two lonely souls finding completeness in each other's arms. Her skin seemed to glow brighter with each caress, illuminating the room in soft blue light. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Ethan tracing lazy patterns on her back while she rested her head over his heart, listening to its steady rhythm. No words were needed. The universe had given them this moment, this connection that transcended worlds. Dawn crept through the windows with cruel inevitability. Ethan woke to find Lyri already awake, watching him with those expressive amethyst eyes. She smiled sadly, touching his face as if memorizing every detail. They rose silently, the weight of impending separation heavy between them. Over coffee, which Lyri now drank without complaint, perhaps wanting to savor every human experience, they sat close, hands intertwined. A sound pierced the morning calm, a high-pitched hum that made Lyri's head snap up. Through the window, they saw it, a ship descending from the clouds, sleek and silver, settling into the clearing beyond the trees. Her rescue had arrived. Lyri stood, her face a mixture of relief and anguish. Ethan followed her outside, where a door in the ship opened, revealing two figures, also blue-skinned, clearly her people. They called to her urgently in their musical language. She turned to Ethan, tears streaming down her face, leaving trails of luminescence on her cheeks. Ethan, she said brokenly, the only word they truly shared. Go, he said, though it felt like tearing out his own heart. They need you. Your world needs you. But Lyri shook her head fiercely. She spoke rapidly to her companions, gesturing between them and Ethan. Their expressions shifted from urgency to surprise to something like understanding. A lengthy exchange followed, words flying too fast for Ethan to even pretend to follow. Finally, Lyri turned back to him. She took his hands, speaking slowly in English, each word clearly practiced. I must return. My mission. Important. But. She pressed something into his palm, a small crystal device that pulsed with inner light. This, for communication. I will come back. You'll come back. Ethan's voice cracked with hope he was afraid to feel. Yes. She touched his face, her smile radiant despite the tears. My people, they understand now. About Kayla. She placed her hand over his heart, then her own. Connection between worlds. It matters. It changes everything. One of her companions called out, more insistent now. Time was running out. How long? Ethan asked desperately. 6 Earth months. I must report. Complete mission. Then. She gestured between them, her meaning clear. She would return to him. Ethan pulled her into one final kiss, pouring everything he couldn't say into it, his love, his faith, his willingness to wait. When they broke apart, Lyrie was smiling through her tears. Wait for me, she said. Please. Always, he promised. She walked backward toward the ship, their hands clasped until the last possible moment. As her fingers slipped from his, she touched her heart, then pointed to him, a gesture he returned. The ship's door closed, and within moments, it lifted silently into the sky, becoming a silver dot against the blue, then vanishing entirely. Ethan stood in the clearing long after she'd gone, the crystal device warm in his hand. It pulsed gently, rhythmically, like a heartbeat, he realized. Like 2 hearts beating in sync across the vastness of space. 6 months. He could wait 6 months for the woman who'd changed everything, who'd reminded him that the universe was vast and full of wonders, but that the greatest wonder was connection, finding someone who saw you, truly saw you, and chose to stay. Ethan looked up at the morning sky, already counting the days until it would bring her back to him. And somewhere among those distant stars, he knew Lyrie was looking back, holding the same promise in her heart. The universe had brought them together once. It would do so again. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The end.